Might have heard over the past week, federal opposition leader Malcolm Turnbull has been putting pressure on the Australian banks. He's demanded they pass on any reduction in official interest rates in full. Of course, at that point, no one expected a rate cut of 1%. I spoke with Malcolm Turnbull earlier this afternoon. Now, Malcolm Turnbull, the Reserve Bank has moved for a full % reduction in interest rates. Was that the appropriate response to the problems we're facing?
Well, it's a very welcome response, Mark. I think everyone's very pleased they've made this big cut.
Well, here's the key question. Should the banks pass that on in full?
Well, that's my view. I've been quite consistent about that. There's been some very wishy-washy language from the Prime Minister and the Treasurer. They basically ran up the white flag on this issue last week.
But the whole percentage point should be given over to borrowers.
Yes, there is no question in my mind, at least, that the banks are profitable enough, they're big enough, they're secure enough to pass on the whole 1%, the whole 100 basis points.
Well, Malcolm Turnbull says they should pass this on in full. What do you say to that?
Oh, well, he's just saying something political, really. It's not a particularly sensible thing to say. I mean, the banks, I think the banks made it clear to the government about 3 weeks ago when Lehman Brothers went broke in the middle of September and the London interbank offered rate, LIBOR, spiked suddenly. That suddenly increased the bank's cost of funds from offshore, which is about a third of their funding. And at that point, the banks went to the government and said, listen, we've got a problem here, and the way things are looking, we will have to increase our lending rates before the Reserve Bank meets on October the 7th. And I think that they came to a bit of a deal, and they said the government agreed to stop bashing them if the banks waited until October the 7th.
Well, that's fascinating.
In that context, I think the Reserve Bank had no choice but to come out with a big rate cut that would allow a bit of room. I mean, if the Reserve Bank came out with 0.25%, then the banks would have not cut at all. And the thing is, if it was 0.5%, the banks would have cut a bit, but it still wouldn't have done much for the economy. The bank lending rate would have come down by 0.2, maybe 0.3%, and that wouldn't have been enough to help the economy. So really, I think in the situation, the Reserve Bank had little choice but to cut by 1%.
Well,
Ralph Norris, thanks for speaking to Late Line Business.
Thanks, Phil.
Well, some politicians are claiming credit for the magnitude of your rate cut. How much did political pressure have to do with it?
Nothing whatsoever. I think it's important to note that we obviously had a cost to recover, or an attempt to reduce the level of subsidisation that we've had in mortgage rates, and so passing on 80% of the decrease was something that was done based around our economic models, not based around political pressure.